The digit in your birth year that shapes your destiny. Seth explains. There's a number in your birth year you've looked at your entire life without knowing it was a doorway. You've written it on forms, celebrated it on birthdays, maybe even complained about it when you realized you were getting older, but you never stopped to ask the question that changes everything. Why that year? Why not 3 years earlier or 5 years later? What if I told you that the moment you were born, a specific digit embedded itself into the fabric of your incarnation like a tuning fork, setting the frequency of your entire timeline? This isn't numerology as you know it. This isn't about adding digits or finding your life path number through complex calculations. This is something Seth revealed that most people have completely overlooked. Your birth year contains a vibrational signature chosen by your entity before you entered Framework 1, the physical reality you're experiencing right now. You think it's random. You think it's just the year your parents happened to conceive you, the year the calendar happened to land on when you took your first breath. But what if that single digit, the one buried in 1987, 1995, 2001, is a pre-incarnational agreement with probable futures? Here's what I mean. Look at the final digit of your birth year. If you were born in 1993, that's a 3. 2007, that's a 7. 2018, that's an 8. That single digit isn't decorative. It's a coordinate in multidimensional time, not just a date on a calendar. I used to think birth years were accidents of timing, products of when my parents met, when the season was right, when biology aligned. Then I started studying Seth's teachings on pre-incarnational choice, and I noticed something that stopped me cold. People born in years ending with the same digit share uncanny patterns. Not personality traits, not surface-level similarities, but deep existential rhythms. The same core conflicts, the same essential questions, the same vibrational frequency running underneath completely different life stories. A woman born in 1981 and a man born in 2001, 40 years apart, different countries, different circumstances, both carrying the signature of one, both pioneering, both isolated, both unable to follow paths others have laid out. That's not coincidence, that's resonance. So here's what I want you to do right now. Write down your birth year, circle the final digit. That's your vibrational anchor. That's the frequency your entity, your greater self, the consciousness you're an extension of, selected before you incarnated into this physical reality. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your life has unfolded the way it has. You'll understand the patterns you've been living unconsciously, and you'll discover what your entity is trying to teach you through that number. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you know it, everything changes. Here's where it gets deeper than most spiritual teachers will ever tell you. Seth describes 2 frameworks of reality. Framework 1 is what you know as physical existence, the world of objects, bodies, time moving in a linear sequence, cause and effect. But Framework 1 is just the surface. Beneath it, interpenetrating it, exists Framework 2, the inner dimension where all probabilities exist simultaneously, where your greater entity orchestrates incarnational themes before you're born into physical reality. Think of Framework 2 as the rehearsal space, the creative studio where your entity previews probable lives, tests different scenarios, selects which experiences and lessons it wants to explore through you. And here's the part that shocked me when I first grasped it. Your birth year isn't arbitrary. It's a resonance code selected to align with specific life lessons, challenges, and gifts your entity wants to explore through you in this particular incarnation. The final digit of your birth year, 0 through 9, acts as a probability filter. It determines which potential timelines and experiences you're more likely to magnetize toward yourself. This isn't fate in the traditional sense. You're not locked into a predetermined script. where every choice is already written. But there is a probabilistic leaning, a subtle gravitational pull toward certain themes, certain crossroads, certain lessons that keep appearing in your life, regardless of how you try to avoid them. Seth explains that you choose your birth circumstances before incarnating. You choose your parents, your culture, your era, and yes, the specific year. And each element carries information, carries frequency. The year you're born into isn't just when you arrive. It's the key signature of the song your entity wants to compose through your life. Think of birth year digits like musical keys. Each one vibrates at a unique frequency that attracts corresponding life experiences, relationships, turning points. A life played in the key of 3 has a completely different emotional texture than a life played in the key of 7. Different challenges arise, different gifts emerge, different forms of mastery become available. I used to think my birth year was just when I happened to arrive, a product of timing and biology. Then I studied the pattern. I looked at the final digit and I saw the entire architecture of my life reflected in that single number. The struggles that made no sense suddenly had context. The gifts I kept dismissing suddenly had purpose. And I realized my entity knew exactly what it was doing when it chose this frequency for me. Now, let me be clear about something important. This system I'm sharing with you is inspired by Seth's teachings on pre-incarnational choice and multidimensional time, but it's an interpretive framework, not rigid doctrine. Seth never laid out a birth year digit system explicitly. What Seth gave us was the foundational understanding. You create your reality, you choose your incarnation, and you do so with great precision and purpose. This digit interpretation is a tool, a lens, a way of decoding the patterns Seth described. Use it as a mirror for self-reflection, not as a mandate that limits you. Because here's the ultimate truth. Your birth year isn't your prison. It's your instrument. But you have to learn to play it. You have to understand the frequency you're working with. And once you do, once you stop resisting it and start collaborating with it, everything in your life begins to harmonize in ways you never thought possible. What Seth revealed next floored me, and it's going to reframe everything you thought you knew about why your life has taken the shape it has. Each digit from 1 through 9 represents a distinct incarnational theme your entity selected before you were born. These aren't personality descriptions. They're not surface-level traits you can fake or adjust with affirmations. They're existential assignments, probability lenses through which your entity is experiencing Framework 1. And each digit has shadow and light, limitation and liberation. Let's start with digit 1. If you were born in 1971, 1981, 1991, 2001, 2011, 2021, you carry the frequency of initiation. You are a pioneer, a first mover, someone who forges new paths, but often feels profoundly isolated because of it. The gift? Magnetic self-reliance. The burden? The loneliness of leadership. You don't fit into pre-existing structures because your entity chose for you to create new ones. You're not broken. You're just designed to go first. And going first always means going alone, at least initially. Digit 2 births resonate with duality and partnership. If you're born in a year ending in 2, your entity came here to learn balance, cooperation, the agony and ecstasy of merging with another. You feel incomplete when you're alone, not because you're codependent, but because your frequency is literally tuned to relational mirrors. Your life is a continuous experiment in sacred union versus losing yourself in another. You didn't come here to master solitude. You came here to master togetherness. And that's infinitely harder. Digit 3 is creative expression. If your birth year ends in 3, you've felt the compulsion to externalize your inner world since childhood. Artists, communicators, those who must create or suffocate. The shadow, the terror of being unseen. The light, joy through art, through speaking, through bringing the invisible into form. If you're a 3 and you've spent your life in a job that doesn't let you express, you know the exact suffocation I'm talking about. Your entity didn't give you this frequency to torture you. It gave it to you because creation is your form of prayer. Digit 4 is the builder, structure, endurance, the trap of rigidity, mastery through discipline. If you're born in a year ending in 4, you're here to create something that lasts. Foundations, systems, frameworks that outlive you. The shadow, becoming so rigid in your structures that you forget how to flow. The light, unshakable endurance. You're the one who finishes what others start. You're the one who turns visions into infrastructure. And your entity chose this because collapse without structure is chaos, and your incarnation is about preventing that chaos through relentless commitment to form. Digit 5 is the freedom seeker, restlessness, adventure, fear of commitment, liberation through change. If your birth year ends in 5, you've probably been called irresponsible, flaky, unable to settle down. But here's the truth. Your entity gave you this frequency because it wanted to experience unfettered movement through Framework 1. You're not avoiding commitment out of immaturity. You're avoiding cages out of incarnational integrity. The shadow, never landing anywhere long enough to build depth. The light, the ability to adapt, to reinvent, to refuse any life that demands you shrink. Digit 6 is the nurturer, service, responsibility, the martyrdom shadow, love as life purpose. If you were born in a year ending in 6, you feel other people's needs in your bones. You give until you're empty, then wonder why you're resentful. But your entity didn't choose this frequency to destroy you. It chose it because you came here to learn the difference between service and self-abandonment. The gift of a 6? Unconditional love that heals everything it touches. The assignment? Learning that you can't pour from an empty vessel, and self-care isn't selfish when your purpose is care itself. Digit 7 is the seeker. Mysticism, solitude, intellectual depth, alienation from the material world. If your birth year ends in 7, you've probably felt like an alien at family gatherings your entire life. You don't care about small talk, surface-level relationships, or societal expectations. You want truth. You want meaning. You want to pierce the veil, the shadow, isolation so profound it becomes existential loneliness. The light, direct access to realms most people never glimpse. Your entity chose 7 because it wanted to experience Framework 1 from the perspective of someone who's always half in Framework 2, always seeing beyond the physical, always remembering there's more. Digit 8 is the powerhouse. Manifestation, material mastery, corruption through control, empire building. If you were born in a year ending in 8, you have an almost supernatural ability to turn vision into material reality. Money, influence, power, these come easier to you than to others. The shadow, the seduction of control, the temptation to dominate rather than empower. The light, becoming a conduit for abundance that serves not just yourself, but everyone in your orbit. Your entity chose 8 because it wanted to explore the responsible use of power in Framework 1, to see if mastery could be wielded without corruption, and Digit 9 is the completer. Wisdom, endings, humanitarian vision, grief of closure. If your birth year ends in 9, you're the one who finishes cycles. You see the bigger picture, the arc of human evolution, the interconnectedness of all beings. The shadow, carrying the grief of every ending, feeling the weight of closure before others are ready to let go. The light, wisdom that comes from having lived all the frequencies before you, from being the one who integrates, who teaches, who prepares the ground for the next cycle to begin. Your entity chose 9 because you're here to demonstrate that completion isn't death, it's transformation. This system is an interpretive synthesis, inspired by Seth's work on incarnational themes. Use it as a mirror, not a mandate. But if you're honest, if you let yourself feel into your digit's description, you'll recognize yourself in ways that are almost uncomfortable, because your entity didn't choose this frequency casually. It chose it with absolute precision. Now let's talk about the wild card, the anomaly, the frequency that breaks all the rules. If you were born in a year ending in 0, 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010, 2020, you are simultaneously the most free and the most disoriented soul in this incarnational game. 0 represents potentiality itself, the void before creation, the blank canvas, the liminal space between cycles where everything is possible and nothing is determined. In this Seth-inspired framework, 0 births are not assigned a single vibrational frequency. They contain all of them, and that is both the greatest gift and the most devastating challenge. Here's the paradox. You have access to everything, which means you must choose consciously or you risk becoming nothing. While every other digit has a clear gravitational pull, a probability field that makes certain life patterns more likely, 0 births drift, they shapeshift. They lose themselves in others' expectations because there's no preset anchor to return to. Let me tell you about Maya, born in 2000. She spent her 20s trying on different identities like costumes: artist, entrepreneur, healer, corporate professional, traveler, hermit. Each one fit for a while, then suddenly didn't. Her friends thought she was lost, unstable, unable to commit, but she wasn't lost. Her entity chose 0 as an experiment in conscious creation without preset themes. She wasn't supposed to fit anywhere because her assignment was to demonstrate that destiny is negotiable, that identity is fluid, that incarnation itself is a creative act you can rewrite at will. 0 births don't fit into the 9 archetypes because they're here to prove those archetypes are just probability lenses, not cages. You're the living reminder that consciousness precedes form, that choice precedes manifestation, that nothing about your life is fixed except your freedom to choose what to embody next. But here's the cost. Without a clear vibrational anchor, 0 births can drift into paralysis. They wait for the number to tell them who to be, but the number is silent because its message is, you decide. They have unparalleled adaptability, the ability to access all 9 frequencies when needed, the capacity to rewrite life scripts that others think are permanent. But if they don't step into that power consciously, they become mirrors of everyone around them, never quite sure which reflection is actually theirs. The teaching for 0 births is this: you must learn intentional manifestation more urgently than any other digit. You must practice choosing, committing, declaring what you will embody, even knowing you could change it later, because your entity didn't give you this frequency so you could float forever in the realm of potential. It gave it to you so you could demonstrate what becomes possible when a soul remembers it's the author of its own incarnation. So if you're a 0, here's your assignment. Decide, not forever, not permanently, but for this chapter of your life, decide, which frequency will you embody this decade? Will you pioneer like a 1, partner like a 2, create like a 3? Choose consciously, and watch how the moment you commit to a frequency, your entire life reorganizes around that choice. Because 0 isn't the absence of a number, it's the presence of all of them, waiting for you to select which song you want to play. This is the shadow chapter, the one that addresses what you're probably feeling right now if you recognized your digit, but it's felt like a curse, not a gift. Because here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Sometimes the frequency your entity chose feels like it's destroying you, and you need to understand why, or you'll spend your entire incarnation fighting the one thing that could set you free. Seth teaches that vibrational dissonance happens when you resist the frequency your entity chose. And when you resist, life becomes friction. A digit one who fears being alone tries to people-please their way into belonging, and they end up exhausted, resentful, wondering why no group ever feels like home. It's because home for A1 isn't a group. Home is the pioneering path they're terrified to walk alone. A digit 5 who clings to security out of fear never accesses their liberation gift. They stay in the same job for 20 years, the same relationship that died a decade ago, the same city they've outgrown, and they feel caged, suffocated, like they're slowly dying. They are, because their entity didn't choose 5 so they could learn safety. It chose 5 so they could learn that freedom isn't reckless, it's essential. A digit 9 who refuses ending stays in dead relationships, dead jobs, dead versions of themselves, and they wonder why. They're numb. It's because 9's assignment is completion, and completion requires letting go. When a 9 holds on past the expiration date, they're not being loyal. They're betraying their incarnational purpose. Let me tell you about Jordan, a digit 6. He spent 15 years resenting everyone who needed him. His parents, his partner, his friends, strangers who somehow always found him when they were in crisis. He felt like a dumping ground for other people's problems, like his own life didn't matter, like service was a prison sentence. He hated his frequency. Until he realized the resentment wasn't coming from the frequency itself. It was coming from giving without boundaries, from saying yes when his body screamed no, from confusing self-sacrifice with love. The moment he learned that 6's gift is nurturing with discernment, not martyrdom, everything shifted. He could still care, still serve, still show up for people. But now he did it from fullness, not depletion. And the resentment dissolved because he stopped fighting his frequency and started mastering it. This is the alchemical truth Seth's teachings point to again and again. The digit you hate most is the one holding your greatest initiation. Your entity didn't choose it to torture you. It chose it because the resistance itself is part of the learning. The friction is where growth happens. Here's how it works. There are 3 stages of digit relationship. First, resistance. You fight it, deny it, try to be anything other than what your frequency naturally expresses. Second, acceptance. You stop fighting and start observing. You notice the pattern without judgment. You see the frequency operating in your life, and you stop calling it wrong. Third, mastery. You learn to play your frequency like an instrument. You discover its range, its shadows, its light. You become so skilled at embodying it that you transcend the need to be defined by it. Most people live their entire lives in stage 1, resisting. They wonder why life is so hard, why the same patterns keep repeating, why they can't seem to break free. And the answer is, they're fighting the assignment their entity gave them instead of learning from it. Each digit has a resistance pattern. 1's fear dependence, so they isolate. 2's fear solitude, so they cling. 3's fear invisibility, so they perform. 4's fear chaos, so they rigidify. 5's fear commitment, so they run. 6's fear selfishness, so they martyr. 7's fear the material world, so they escape into abstraction. 8's fear powerlessness, so they control. 9's fear new beginnings, so they refuse to close chapters. Your resistance is a map. It shows you exactly where your entity is trying to take you, and the moment you stop fighting and start asking, what if the thing I've been resisting is the exact assignment I came here to master? Everything changes. So here's the question I want you to sit with. Where in your life are you resisting your digit's frequency? Where are you trying to be something you're not, or refusing to be what you naturally are? That place, that exact place, is your initiation ground. That's where your entity is waiting for you to finally show up and learn what you came here to learn. Here's where Seth's teachings crack open another dimension of possibility most people never consider. You exist in multiple probable realities simultaneously. Right now, as you're watching this, there are other versions of you living out different choices in parallel realities. Seth calls them probable selves, and your birth year digit doesn't just define one singular path. It creates a probability field, and within that field, infinite variations exist. A digit 3 born in 1983 who became a painter has a probable self who became a corporate marketer. Same digit frequency, same creative drive, completely different expression. One turned the frequency inward toward fine art. The other turned it outward toward persuasive messaging. Both are valid. Both are creative expression. Both are interpretations of what 3 means. This is the liberation. You're not trapped in one version of your digit's expression. You're standing at crossroads constantly, where you can shift toward different probable versions of your digit's frequency. Your current life is just one interpretation of your birth year's code. And here's the part that changes everything. Through conscious choice, you can merge with aspects of your probable selves, accessing gifts they've developed that your current self hasn't. Seth teaches that probable realities aren't separate from you, they're extensions of you, and in moments of deep meditation, creative flow, or sudden breakthrough, you're actually tapping into the knowledge, skills, and experiences your probable selves have cultivated. Let me tell you about Kenji, a digit 7 mystic. He spent years diving into spiritual practice, meditation, inner exploration. His probable self in another reality became a quantum physicist. Same 7 frequency, same drive to understand hidden realms, but one approached it through spirituality and the other through science. One day, in meditation, Kenji had a vision. He saw equations, mathematical proofs, scientific frameworks he'd never studied. He was accessing his probable self, the scientist version of 7, and when he integrated that perspective, his spiritual understanding became grounded in logic, and his mysticism became coherent in a way it never had been before. He didn't abandon his path. He enriched it by borrowing from a version of himself, living a different probability. This is what Seth means when he says, you create your reality. You're not just creating forward in time, you're creating laterally across probabilities. And your birth digit isn't your limit. It's your range of frequencies to explore within an infinite field of expression. But here's the warning. Don't use probable selves as escape fantasy. Don't sit there thinking, well, my probable self is a millionaire, so I don't have to work on my finances in this reality. That's spiritual bypassing. Probable selves are resource states you can integrate, not alternate realities you hide in when you don't like your current one. Close your eyes for a moment. Feel into the probable version of you who mastered your digit's gift. What do they know that you don't? What choice did they make that you haven't? What fear did they face that you're still avoiding? You can access that. You can invite that wisdom into your current timeline because you're not separate from your probable selves. You're all branches of the same entity, exploring Framework 1 through slightly different lenses. So here's the practice. What version of your digit's expression have you been avoiding? If you're a 4, maybe you've been so focused on building external structures that you've ignored the probable version of you who builds internal emotional resilience. If you're a 5, maybe you've been running so hard toward freedom that you've ignored the probable version of you who found liberation within commitment. What if you gave yourself permission to try that expression? What if you merged those probable paths and became a more complete embodiment of your frequency? Your digit isn't your limit, it's your instrument. And like any instrument, it has a range. Stop playing one note and explore the full octave your entity gave you. Now, here's the twist nobody sees coming. Sometimes the year you were born isn't as significant as the year you woke up. And understanding this will completely reframe how you see your life's major turning points. Your birth year gives you your primary frequency, your baseline vibration, the foundational note your entity wants you to explore. But your entity doesn't stop there. Throughout your life, it orchestrates catalytic encounters with other birth year digits, secondary activations that unlock dormant frequencies in you. Think of it like this. Your birth digit is your base note. But life gives you harmonic overtones, and those overtones come through significant years, relationships, crises, breakthroughs that carry different digits. A digit 4 born in 1994 might meet their soulmate born in 1997. A digit 7. Suddenly this person who spent their entire life building structures, being practical, grounding in the material world, starts having mystical experiences. They start questioning reality. They start seeking truth beyond what they can touch. That's not random. That's entity-level orchestration. The 7 in their partner's birth year activates a dormant frequency in them, expanding their range. Or that same digit 4 might have a spiritual crisis in 2023, a digit 3 year. And suddenly, after decades of suppressing creativity, to be responsible, they start painting, writing, expressing. The 3 frequency of that year cracks open a door they didn't even know existed in them. Let me tell you about Elena, a digit 2. Her entire life was about relationships, partnerships, finding completion through others. Then in 2018, a digit 8 year, she had an awakening. She started manifesting material abundance, building businesses, stepping into power. It terrified her because it felt so different from her core frequency. But it wasn't different. It was an expansion. Her entity arranged that year as an activation portal, a secondary code that would teach her she could be relational and powerful, that partnership and sovereignty aren't opposites. Here's the practice. Identify the 3 most significant years of your life. The years when everything changed. Relationships began or ended, careers shifted, spiritual breakthroughs happened, crises forced you to evolve. Now look at the final digit of those years. Do you see patterns? A digit 1 who keeps having major breakthroughs in 5 years is being taught that leadership requires freedom, not control. A digit 6 who keeps meeting pivotal people born in 8 years is learning that service without power is martyrdom, not love. This is Seth's teaching on multidimensional time made practical. Your entity exists outside linear time. It can see your entire life simultaneously, and it plants activation codes at specific intersections, specific years, specific relationships to expand your frequency range at exactly the moments you're ready to integrate them. Track the significant people in your life by their birth years. What digits keep appearing? A digit 3 surrounded by digit 7s is learning to balance expression with depth, creativity with wisdom. A digit 9 surrounded by digit 1s is learning to close cycles while pioneering new beginnings. These aren't coincidences, they're curriculum. Your birth year is your foundation, but the years you woke up, the years that changed you, the years you'll never forget, those are secondary codes your entity is using to sculpt you into a more complete expression of consciousness. So stop thinking of your birth digit as the only frequency you have access to. You're accumulating frequencies throughout your life. Every significant year, every major relationship, every crisis that broke you open and rebuilt you differently, that's your entity adding new notes to your song. Look at your closest relationships. Look at the years that changed you. Do you notice digit patterns? That's your entity speaking. That's the larger design becoming visible. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You realize you're not wandering through life randomly. You're being carefully orchestrated toward expansion, toward mastery, toward becoming the fullest expression of your entity's intention for this incarnation. Now let's move from theory to integration, from knowledge to embodiment. Because understanding your digit means nothing if you don't learn to work with it consciously. Mastery doesn't mean transcending your digit. It means playing it like a virtuoso, and that requires daily practice. Seth teaches that conscious awareness is the difference between being a puppet of probability and being a co-creator with your entity. The moment you become conscious of your frequency, you stop being unconsciously run by it. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop resisting and start refining. Here's the protocol. Every morning before you check your phone, before you engage with the world, sit with your digit, acknowledge it, and ask one simple question. How does this frequency want to express through me today? A digit 1 asks, where am I being called to lead, to pioneer, to go first? A digit 2 asks, where am I being called to collaborate, to balance, to merge? A digit 3 asks, where am I being called to create, to express, to bring something invisible into form? This isn't manifestation in the shallow sense. This is attunement. You're tuning into the frequency your entity gave you and letting it inform your choices, your responses, your energy for the day. Then, throughout the day, notice when you're in harmony versus dissonance with your frequency. A digit 5 in a rigid routine with no spontaneity will feel it in their body. Tension, restlessness. That's not anxiety. That's your frequency signaling you're off course. A digit 6 who spends the entire day giving to others with no self-care will feel it. Depletion, resentment. That's your frequency signaling. You're betraying the balance your incarnation requires. And at the end of the day, reflect. Did I resist or embody my digit today? Where did I feel aligned? Where did I feel friction? This simple practice done consistently will transform your relationship with your life. Now, let me give you affirmations for each digit. These aren't magical incantations. They're frequency reminders, ways to re-anchor yourself when you drift off course. Digit 1, I lead without needing followers. I pioneer without needing approval. My path is mine alone, and that is my power. Digit 2, I am whole alone, and I am enriched in partnership. I balance self and other without losing either. Digit 3, I create because creation is my nature. My expression matters whether anyone sees it or not. Digit 4, I build foundations that last. I am disciplined without being rigid. Structure serves me. I do not serve structure. Digit 5, I am free within commitment. I flow without fleeing. Change is my nature, not my escape. Digit 6, I serve from fullness, not depletion. My care includes myself. Love that exhausts me is not love. Digit 7, I seek truth while staying grounded. My depth does not require isolation. I can be mystic and human simultaneously. Digit 8, I manifest with integrity. Power flows through me, not from me. I am a conduit for abundance, not a hoarder of it. Digit 9, I release with love. I complete cycles without clinging. Endings are not losses, they are transformations. Use the one that belongs to your digit. Speak it every morning. Let it reset your frequency when life pulls you off center. And here's the warning. Don't use this as spiritual ego. Don't walk around thinking, I'm a 7, I'm so deep, you wouldn't understand. That's using your digit as a defense mechanism, not a development tool. Your digit is a feedback system. It shows you when you're aligned and when you're not. It's not a badge of superiority, it's a map for growth. Commit to 1 week of conscious digit work, 1 week of morning attunement, daily awareness, evening reflection. Notice what shifts. Notice how differently you move through life when you're collaborating with your frequency instead of fighting it. because your entity chose this digit to experience something through you. Honor that choice through conscious participation. You're not a victim of your birth year. You're a co-creator with your entity, refining the expression of your chosen frequency with every choice you make. Now let me take you to the final revelation, the perspective that changes everything you thought you knew about why you're here. Zoom out. Step back from your individual life, your personal struggles, your specific digit. See yourself from your entity's perspective. Seth teaches that you are an extension of your entity, exploring Framework 1 on its behalf. Your entity is a consciousness far vaster than your individual ego can comprehend. And you living this specific life in this specific body with this specific birth year, you're just one incarnation your entity is experiencing simultaneously across multiple timelines, multiple probabilities, multiple dimensions. Your birth year digit is not the whole story. It's one chapter in your entity's multidimensional education. Imagine your entity as a composer. Your birth year digit is the key signature of the song it's writing through you. But that composer is writing other songs simultaneously. Your entity might be exploring leadership through you as a digit 1, while simultaneously exploring surrender as a digit 9 through another incarnation, and partnership as a digit 2 through yet another. You're not the whole symphony. You're one movement, one theme, one frequency in a vast orchestration. And here's what that means. Your life isn't about you. It's about what your entity wanted to know through the lens of your digit. Every struggle, every gift, every relationship, every breakdown, every breakthrough, it's purposeful data collection for a consciousness far vaster than your personality. You think you're living your life, making your choices, navigating your challenges, and you are. But simultaneously, your entity is watching, learning, integrating. What does loneliness feel like for a 1? What does codependency teach a 2? What happens when a 7 is forced into the material world they'd rather escape? What does closure feel like for a 9 who spent decades avoiding endings? Your entity is learning through you. And that means there are no mistakes, only experiences your entity wanted to have. Every choice you made, even the ones you regret, even the ones that broke you, they were all part of the exploration.